Are you wondering if your business can actually survive without Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace? Do you want to know if there's a real open source alternative that doesn't feel like a step back to 2005? If so, you're in the right place. In this video, we're looking at a massive shift happening in Europe right now. By the end of this video, you'll be able to decide if the brand new OnlyOffice suite is ready for your daily workflow, or if it's still too early to make the jump. Let's start with the hard truth. For more than 20 years, if you wanted to run a modern business, a school, or a government department, you really only had two choices. You paid Microsoft or you paid Google. But over the last year, things have changed. Geopolitical tensions, new tariffs, and concerns over data privacy under the US Cloud Act have pushed European organizations to a breaking point. In the end, what they truly want is digital sovereignty. They want to know that their documents, their spreadsheets, and their emails aren't sitting on servers controlled by foreign companies that could change their terms or access their data at any moment. And that's where OnlyOffice comes in. Launching its first stable 1.0 release on June 9th, 2026, OnlyOffice is being positioned not just as another Office suite, but as a vital piece of European digital infrastructure. But here's the first open loop. OnlyOffice is not actually a brand new codebase built from scratch. It's a fork of a very popular existing open source suite. And that fork has triggered a massive legal battle behind the scenes. We'll get into that drama in a moment. But first, we need to understand what this suite actually is and how it fits into the broader European cloud stack. So, what actually is OnlyOffice? On paper, it's a web-based open source productivity suite that includes four core applications: a document editor, a spreadsheet program, a presentation tool, and a built-in PDF editor. If you've used Microsoft Word, Excel, or PowerPoint online, the interface will feel instantly familiar. It uses a modern ribbon-style toolbar, and it's explicitly designed for real-time collaboration in the browser. Unlike traditional desktop suites like LibreOffice, OnlyOffice is built from the ground up for the cloud. It supports real-time co-editing, track changes, version history, and document comparison. And crucially for business users, it offers native, highly accurate rendering of Microsoft's OOXML formats. That means you can open, edit, and save DOCX, XLSX, and PPTX files without worrying that your formatting, your tables, or your charts are going to break when you send them back to a Microsoft user. But here's the catch, and it's a big one for sysadmins. OnlyOffice is not designed to be downloaded as a standalone desktop app on June 9th. It is built to be integrated into an existing collaboration ecosystem. It's an editing engine, not a full-scale workplace suite. It doesn't handle your user identity, your file storage, or your email. For that, you need a host platform. And that brings us to the massive coalition of European tech companies that are bringing this project to market. Chapter 3, the European Coalition. OnlyOffice is not the work of a single developer in a basement. It is backed by a who is who of European cloud, hosting, and collaboration vendors. The coalition includes Germany's IONOS and Nextcloud, along with Eurostack, XWiki, Open Project, Sovereign, Abelian, bTactic, Open Exchange, and Office.eu. These companies are not just putting their names on the press release. They are actively investing millions of euros and hiring dedicated development teams to maintain and expand the software. This collaborative model is the secret to how OnlyOffice plans to scale. Instead of forcing organizations to set up a brand new, isolated Office server, OnlyOffice is launching as an integrated component inside the platforms these organizations are already using. For example, on June 9th, OnlyOffice will ship as a core, out-of-the-box option inside the latest Nextcloud Hub 26 spring release. If you are a managed Nextcloud customer with IONOS, you will be able to install OnlyOffice with a single click shortly after launch. IONOS plans to roll it into their broader Nextcloud Workspace offering later this summer. XWiki, the French enterprise wiki vendor, is integrating it in the fourth quarter, and Dutch-based Office.eu has committed to a full rollout by the end of the year. This means OnlyOffice will instantly be in front of millions of enterprise and public sector users, without them having to change a single workflow. Subscribe for more. Chapter 4, the OnlyOffice controversy. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, the controversy. As we teased earlier, OnlyOffice is not a brand new codebase. It is a fork of OnlyOffice, a highly respected open source office suite developed by Essentio System SIA. And when the fork was announced back in March, OnlyOffice was furious. They alleged that Nextcloud and the OnlyOffice project were violating their GNU GPL licensing terms and infringing on their copyright due to a lack of proper attribution. The dispute centered on some highly restrictive clauses that OnlyOffice had added to their version of the AGPL license, including a requirement to keep their branding and logos completely intact when redistributing the code. But open source licensing experts, including the Free Software Foundation, quickly pointed out that these extra restrictions are actually incompatible with the standard AGPL v3 license and are therefore legally unenforceable. Nextcloud declared that they had liberated the OnlyOffice codebase, cleaned up the code, and applied critical security updates. This led to a fascinating back and forth. Nextcloud CEO Frank Karliczek recently stated that the conflict was resolved because they agreed to provide clear attribution, mentioning that the code is based on OnlyOffice. However, OnlyOffice's commercial director, Galina Goduhina, immediately denied this, stating that no official agreement had been reached and that compliance with their terms is not optional. It's a classic open source standoff. But practically speaking, Nextcloud has adopted OnlyOffice's recent license cleanups, and the June 9th launch is proceeding full steam ahead. This raises an obvious question. If OnlyOffice is already a great European-based open source suite, why did the coalition feel the need to fork it and start a brand new project, rather than just partnering with them? The answer goes right to the heart of what digital sovereignty actually means, and reveals some long-standing concerns within the European tech community. While OnlyOffice is officially headquartered in Riga, Latvia, which is an EU member state, there have been persistent questions about its corporate structure and where its development actually takes place. Community investigations have shown that OnlyOffice's parent company, Ascensio System, began as a subsidiary of a Russian-based entity, and much of its core engineering has historically been linked to Russia. For European governments, defense departments, and highly regulated industries, even the slight suspicion of foreign state influence is an absolute deal breaker. But there's also a commercial conflict. OnlyOffice uses an open core business model. They offer a free community edition, but they historically placed a hard limit of 20 concurrent connections on it. If a business wanted more than 20 people editing documents at the same time, they were forced to buy an expensive commercial license. By forking the code under a pure, unrestricted AGPL v3 license, the EuroOffice coalition has completely removed these limits, creating a truly free, enterprise-grade editing engine that anyone can scale to thousands of users. To understand why this is happening right now, we have to look at the broader geopolitical landscape in 2026. The European Union's relationship with the United States has become increasingly unstable, and European leaders are deeply worried about their total reliance on American technology giants. Microsoft, Google, and Amazon currently control over 70% of Europe's cloud infrastructure, and that dominance is starting to look like a massive strategic vulnerability. The pressure is coming from the very top. Just hours ago, draft documents revealed that the European Commission is proposing sweeping new cloud rules designed to curb big tech's access to strategic government tenders. The upcoming tech sovereignty package, scheduled to be presented on May 27th, includes the Cloud and AI Development Act, which aims to force EU member governments to use homegrown European cloud capacity for hosting sensitive public sector data. This isn't just about cloud hosting, it's about the software that runs on top of it. Under the US Cloud Act, American law enforcement can legally demand user data from US companies, regardless of where that data is physically stored, even if it's in a data center in Frankfurt or Paris. For European financial, judicial, and healthcare data, this is a massive compliance headache. European governments are realizing that to truly protect their citizens' data, they have to own the entire stack, from the physical servers up to the office software. Now let's do a quick reality check. As an IT administrator with over 25 years of experience, I can tell you that migrating a business or a government department off Microsoft 365 is not just a matter of installing some new software and calling it a day. It is an incredibly complex, painful process that touches almost every part of an organization's daily operations. First, there is the identity problem. Microsoft 365 isn't just Word and Excel, it's Azure Active Directory, single sign-on, and device management. If you move to EuroOffice, you have to wire up your own identity provider, like Keycloak or Authentic, and integrate it with your host platform. Then there is the data migration. Moving terabytes of files from OneDrive and SharePoint to a self-hosted Nextcloud instance requires careful planning, network bandwidth, and significant storage infrastructure. And let's not forget about the document compatibility. Yes, EuroOffice has excellent support for DOCX and XLSX formats, but every sysadmin knows the nightmare of legacy Excel sheets. If your finance department relies on complex Excel macros, VBA scripts, or third-party database connectors, Those are going to break when you move them to a web-based editor. A successful migration requires a thorough audit of your organization's templates and workflows before you even think about switching. So, what is actually missing from EuroOffice at launch? If you're comparing it directly to Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, there are some significant gaps that you need to be aware of. First, as we mentioned earlier, EuroOffice is strictly a web-based editing engine at launch on June 9th. It does not ship with desktop applications for Windows, macOS, or Linux. And there are no mobile apps for Android or iOS yet. Nextcloud says that local desktop and mobile apps are planned for later this summer, which will allow users to save documents locally and sync them to their cloud storage. But for now, if your users need to work offline, like on a flight or in an area with poor connectivity, EuroOffice is not going to cut it. You'll still need a local editor like LibreOffice or OnlyOffice installed on their machines. There's also the question of the broader ecosystem. Microsoft 365 gives you Teams, Outlook, and a massive marketplace of third-party add-ins. Google Workspace gives you Gmail, Meet, and Calendar. EuroOffice on its own is just the editor. To get a complete workplace suite, you have to pair it with Nextcloud Hub, which gives you file sharing, video calls, and calendar integration. It's a very capable stack, but it requires more assembly and management than a ready-to-use SaaS subscription from Redmond or Mountain View. There's also a fascinating philosophical debate happening within the open source community right now regarding EuroOffice's document formats. The Document Foundation, the organization behind LibreOffice, and Collabora, which is a LibreOffice-based online editor. The Document Foundation and Collabora have both criticized EuroOffice's heavy focus on Microsoft's OOX ML compatibility over open standards. They argue that by prioritizing Microsoft's proprietary, purposefully complex formats, EuroOffice is actually reinforcing Microsoft's monopoly rather than breaking it. They believe that true digital sovereignty requires moving entirely to open, standardized formats like the Open Document Format, or ODF. It's a valid point, but the EuroOffice coalition has a much more pragmatic view. They understand that if you want a government department or a large enterprise to even consider moving off Microsoft, you have to make the transition as seamless as possible. If their existing files don't open correctly on day one, the migration is dead in the water. High fidelity OOXML compatibility is the bridge that lets organizations cross over to a sovereign stack. Once they are on the other side, you can start encouraging them to use open standards. And Nextcloud has already promised that full native ODF support is at the top of the agenda for the very next EuroOffice release. So, what is the final verdict? Is EuroOffice ready to replace Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace for your organization? If you are a small business running on a tight budget with complex local workflows, the answer is probably not yet.